Greetings, Shalom Aleichem, peace be unto you, and blessings from the Most High. Well, Salamina, which is the American people today, and all around the world, but I'm focusing on the United States Republic right now, and all this craziness that's going on within. We're going to look at CPS, which supposedly stands, also known as DCF, which is supposed to be families. I call it destruction of children and families. So we're going to look at it and try our best to help our fellow Americans understand their natural rights and how to defend themselves, with their own rights. First of all, a disclaimer: we are not attorneys, we do not practice law, and we give legal advice. Okay, this is just research that we have done over the years. We have a lot of knowledge in the system, and we're just sharing our research with you. Okay, so what is CPS and DCF? Number one, a lot of people think they have something to do with the court system. No, they are not. CPS, DCF is not a part of the court. Okay, what they are corporations that umbrellaed under the state's executive or not a part of the court. As a matter of the Constitution have what is known as a separation of powers clause, meaning three separate branches of governments, separate but equal. And as Thomas Jefferson once said, the reason why they did that was to prevent tyranny. In other words, they want checks and balances. They do not want all the power in one branch of government. Okay, so they have the legislative branch. National Constitution is found under Article 1. We have the executive branch, which is the same as administrative. It's under Article 2 of the United States Republic Constitution. And then we have Article 3 is where we find the judiciary branch. Okay, all three branches are equal at the same branches at the same time. Okay, in other words, there's no spin over the fence. And for example, the legislative branch, that's where we find like the lawmakers, like Congress, the Senate, and so forth. Article 2 is where we find the police power, which is the executive branch, which is like the president, and the vice branch, which is the court, which was supposed to be the United States Congress to make law tribunals to help out with the caseload of the Supreme Court. These lower courts are like, from the federal perspective, is like the federal courts, and so on and so forth. So we are three separate but equal powers to be. Okay, and each state in the union, they have similar separation clause because the state constitutions have to mimic the federal constitution. The reason being because of the supremacy clause of what is known as Article 6. What is Article 6? It's a supreme law of the land clause, which states this constitution and the last first one shall be the supreme law of land. We know what supreme means. Supreme means the highest. Okay, so the constitution, the national constitution, which many call the federal constitution, is the highest form of the land. Then we went for that by saying those of the legislative branch, which are the courts, they must be bound to defend the constitution. Okay, anything contrary is notwithstanding. In other words, if they come up with a law, a code, or a statute, and it violates the supreme law of the land, which is the Constitution, they do not have any standing. They are void, no jurisdiction. Now we're going to look at CPS, DCF, and they operate under what is called color of law. If you look at, for example, the second edition of Black's Law's Dictionary, I'm just paraphrasing it, tells us that the color of law resembles law, okay, but it doesn't have the force of law, okay. What it does, it requires our participation and our consent. That's what color of law is. It even have the force of law, but it requires our consent to compel performance. Now, they don't tell this to the average person. No, CPS or DCF, whatever you call it, they lack certain jurisdiction over we, the people. But the people do not know that. Okay, I remember years ago in this country, they used to teach in September which was known as Constitution. They used to have what is known as like a constitutional day where they teach constitutional law in schools that the next generation can learn and be able to continue to protect their rights. They don't do that anymore, and it's for a reason, okay? It's purposely been taken away. Um, the framers, when they came here from England, they knew what corruption was all about. So they came here, they put what is known as the constitution in place from we the people. When they say we the people, I mean it's supposed to be a constitution of, for, and by the people. So what they did, they stated, they said, we hold this truth to be self-evident that all men are created equal, are endowed by their creator with certain unalienable rights, which amongst these are the right to life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. To preserve these rights, government were instituted amongst men, deriving its just powers from the consent of right. This was the Second Continental Congress, July 4th, 1776. So notice right there, it said rights are unalienable. Most people, if you ask them, what does right are, that is your right. Most people doesn't know the definition of rights. Right there in the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, it states, rights are unalienable. The word unalienable means they came from our creator. They are non-transferable. In other words, no one could transfer anyone's right. Only we, the individual, could waive our rights because they are individually given to us by our creator. Okay? They are non-transferable and they are a duty. In other words, unalienable rights are the right to life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. They cannot be transferred. They cannot be taken away. We are the only ones can give them up. Okay? Very, very important to understand. And also these rights are inherent. Inherent means from the moment we're born, we all have the same natural rights from our creator, regardless of what man wants to say. We all have these rights from our creator, every single one of us, because they were given to us at birth by the creator who creates life. Now, whether a person believes in our creator or not, it doesn't matter, because life doesn't and cannot just exist on this earth by coincidence. It's too complex to be a coincidence. Okay, so there is a creator. So he gave us this unalienable right to protect ourselves. Now, government come along, and what is government? While the people gather and they have to go about their everyday lives, life, liberty, and to pursue happiness and to take care of themselves and work and whatever, what the people do, they form a group from amongst themselves to protect these rights that were already given to us by our creator. This group is called government. So the people from amongst us, we choose a group of people to protect these rights, and we call these people government. These government, they still have the same rights like us, okay? So we give them authority to protect our rights. So they cannot do, or they are not supposed to do anything with our consent. That's why it's called a republic. Article 4, Section 4 of this United States Republic Constitution states, a Republican form of government is guaranteed to every democracy. Well, democracy comes from the Latin word demo, which means mob rule. Okay, in a democracy, majority. Very, very important, and these rights are protected. In this case, protected by a constitution. So it's a Republican form of government, but to be protected. Now, what is this? Protect children from being abused and so on and so forth. But after a while, the powers to be realized it can be a cash cow, so it started to become a tyrannical system or a major system. So what they start to do now, they start to ignore, and now these rights are ignored, and the outcome of these cases are already predetermined. And that's what a kangaroo court is based upon Black's Law Dictionary. Okay, all rights are ignored. Now, many people think that CPS or DCF, they operate on it's court. No, there's no such thing as CPS or DCF court. Okay, like I said before, CPS and DCF, okay, they are administrative, meaning they fall under the executive branch of government. Okay, they are not a part of the court. They're separate from the court. They are administrative. They do not have any judicial power. Okay, now A lot of people, for example, I've spoken to a lot of people personally where sometimes they'll say these people come to their house. Sometimes it could be like a spiteful neighbor or a grudgeful neighbor or an envious neighbor who, for some reason, they don't like you or they don't see if or we the people have a right to not let them in our houses. One of the mistakes many people do, they say, well, I'm not doing anything wrong. I'm not hiding anything. So come on in. I mean, you could do that, but you do that at a risk. Why? Because when the people come out of your house, they're looking for something to say, aha, here we go. And they start a case against you. And it could be a mistake. It could be one of them days like, I mean, let's say everybody buys grocery at some point. Let's say, and the grocery finishes at some point. Let's say for some reason that weekend you're planning to go buy grocery, the grocery was finished and they just pop up and they come inside your house and they start to look in your fridge and they say, oh my gosh, there's no food here. Sometimes you do stuff like that and started at start, which you haven't done anything. It's just that you haven't gotten a chance to reach to the store yet. It's hell to get them out of your house. So one thing that the Constitution put in place for us is when they come to your door, you could simply say, people could simply say no if we choose to, okay? And it's not unlawful for us to say no. Now, if they want to come in by law, there's a Fourth Amendment protection that we the people have, meaning, and it states clearly by stating the rights of the people to be secured in their person, papers, houses, and effects shall be related. No warrant shall issue, but under oath or affirmation under the probable cause describing the place, paper, house, and effect that need to be searched and seized. So for them to come inside your house, they have to have what is known as probable cause, meaning they have to have some type of evidence that a crime has been committed, okay, or is about to be committed. I mean, more than reasonable. Then they have to go to a judge and swear an oath to the judge why they want this oath. And then if the judge realize that there's probable cause, then the judge give them a warrant and they could come back. And circumstances, meaning, let's suppose they come at the door and they, you open the door or whatever, or they look through the window or whatever, and they see a child or some type of danger, immediate danger, then they could come in by force. That's different. But anything short of that, you could just say, have a nice day. If you feel that you need to come in, go get a warrant and they have to leave your property. Okay? Very simple. Now, they're trained to do deceptive things. Like they'll say, oh, why don't you want to let me in? Are you hiding? Some reason the amendment is put in place to keep government intrusion from out of your homes. Excuse me. Okay? Very, very dangerous. I've spoken to many people who said, oh, I didn't have anything to hide, so I let them in. And when they let them in, kaboom, problem. I have a family member years ago, and he and his girlfriend was there, and I don't know what happened. Some neighbor, somebody called DCF. I think we're arguing. And when they came, the girlfriend, my family member, he was taking a shower, and the girlfriend was like, okay, no problem. She let them in the house because they weren't doing anything wrong. But lo and behold, this young man, he smokes weed back then. And he left some on the table. He was in the show, I didn't know, and they came in and saw this weed on the table, and all hell broke loose. Why? Because she let them inside of the house, okay? They didn't do anything wrong, the DCF workers, that's their job. But she voluntarily let them in. So you could simply say no, okay? Very simple. And if they have a probable cause, and they better have a probable cause, meaning they have to have evidence that somebody is in danger, they have to have evidence that a crime was committed against this child or about to commit. They have to have some type of evidence. Otherwise, they are in some serious trouble. Okay? Now, let's move on. Like I said, DCF and CPS, they are found under the Social Security Act. Remember, they have a thing known as 1 USC 204. It's known as prima facie, meaning first glance evidence. In other words, something deems to be something unless it's rebutted or challenged. So, and 1 USC 204, known as prima facie, there's like about, I think it's 56 or 57. I'm not in the US codes. Sometimes you look, you'll see stuff like 1 USC, 2 USC, 42 USC, 18 USC, 20, those are those codes. Now, some of them are positive and some are non-positive, okay? Very, very important to know this. Positive codes, what they call positive law, these are enforced upon everyone, okay? Everyone is allowed to follow them. Why? Like, for example, murder, theft, stealing, and fraud. All of these are under positive code, okay? Non-positive code requires voluntary submission or voluntary signature to compel performance. In other words, they require your consent to move forward. That's what non-positive codes are. For example, CPS is, and DCF, it's branch of government. Now, this is also under 42 USC, or the Social Security Act. The Social Security Act is under 42 USC. It is non-positive. Proof of this, 1 USC 2. Non-positive means you have to consent. You have to consent to them for them to have jurisdiction, okay? 42 USC, very, very important. It requires signature to compel performance. Why? The Social Security Act, for example, Social Security, it's a voluntary program. Nobody's forced into Social Security. Many American people voluntarily decline to be a part of Social Security, and that's fine. There's nothing they could do about it because it's non-positive. It requires your voluntary consent. Everything under 42 USC, that code, requires voluntary consent. And guess what? CPS and DCF is also under 42 USC. So they are non-positive. They are not law. Anything under 42 USC, they are not law. And if they are not law, that means they're color of law. And those who are operating under them, they're operating under color of authority. Okay? Very, very important to understand. So where am I going with this? I'm going with this to say, we the people have certain rights that were given to us by the Almighty. And don't be afraid to stand up for those rights. If you do not stand up for, or if we do not stand up for those rights, it's like they don't exist, okay? It's like they're saying, it's like the saying goes, what's the difference between a man or a woman who cannot read a book, or a man and a woman who can read a book but don't read a book? It's the same result. They're both ignorant because they do not know what's in the book. Okay, if somebody have a right and they do not protect it, it's no different from somebody who do not know their rights. Okay, the result is the same. Okay, so DCF, CPS, they're all corrupted organization, and let me explain why. For example, under the Social Security Act, which is 42 USC, you have Title 4A. I'm going to share with you all the titles, like Title 4A. Title 4A is where we find TANF. It's an acronym, TANF. It stands for Temporary Aid for Needy Family. And that's where the welfare programs are located. Title 4B is where we find like the adoption and stuff like that. Okay. Title 4C, that was repealed. It doesn't exist anymore. Title 4D, that's child support. That's the enforcement arm for Title 4A. In other words, Title 4A, the state loans out the money in welfare to one parent, and Title 4D collects back that money. Title 4E have to do with CPS, DCF, children and family. Now, all these are under the Social Security. It is non-positive. It is voluntary consent. Now, if you notice CPS and DCF, whenever people get entangled into their web, they always want the parents to come down and sign a bunch of paper. Be careful of that. Because when you sign, you're agreeing to something. And many people don't even know what they're agreeing to. Why? They need we the people's consent. Many times people sign their rights away without knowing it. In other words, these people does not have any jurisdiction in the first place. But they fooled us into thinking that they have some type of authority over us. And then how do they get us? They tell us to come and sign our rights away without even knowing it. Once we sign on that dotted line, we actually give them jurisdiction by our signature. Now, speaking of jurisdiction, Jurisdiction is what a court needs or a tribunal before it could go forward. There are many, many key Supreme Court rulings that states that you know, a tribunal without jurisdiction have no way of going forward without jurisdiction. Where do the jurisdiction from? The Constitution, because the Constitution is the supreme law of the land. Now, where does the Constitution get its jurisdiction from? From we the people. Okay? Without jurisdiction, a tribunal cannot go forward. Now, one of the tricks that they do, they'll say stuff like, well, we have jurisdiction. Well, there are many case laws where the High Court said once jurisdiction is challenged, it must be proven on the record, meaning they have to have a special hearing and they have to prove or they have the constitutional authority to do what they're doing. They can't just say we have jurisdiction, which they do many times. They have to prove it, meaning they have to have a hearing. It have to be decided if by the law of the land. And like the Constitution says, anything contrary lacks standing. If it contradicts the Constitution, they have no jurisdiction. It's that simple. Okay? Many people don't know that. We, the people, have to challenge their jurisdiction, their authority. Okay? Most of the time, when you challenge them, they don't have any jurisdiction. Another thing, again, people do not know. In these hearings, these tribunal executive hearings, most of the ones that's doing them are hearing officers or magistrate. Now, remember we read in the supremacy clause, those of the legislative, the executive, and the judiciary branch, they're all have to be bound by an oath to defend the Constitution. Now, a lot of these magistrate and hearing officers, and in some states they have commissioners, they do not have, most of them do not have any oath of office. Okay, they are imposters. Okay, the reason why the framers want them to swear an oath, they want them to have a fiduciary duty to we the people to protect our rights. If they have that, have any fiduciary duty to us, or they are imposters. Okay, and they are not supposed to be there. I post many times, and they have to step down or finish with the case or whatever because they cannot move forward because they don't have any authority because they do not have an oath of office. And there's ways to find that out. It's very, very easy. For example, I'm here in Florida, and what we do, I'll go to like the Department of State, and I'll get the name of the person, magistrate or whosoever, and I'll just call them and request a copy of this person's oath of office. And if there's an oath of office, this organization will have it. And many times, all the time, they send back and they say, no, they don't have it. And then I get a copy, I take it to them at the hearing, and I say, look, where's your oath? You don't have an oath of office. You're an imposter. You cannot move forward. And they can't. Okay, there are many, many loopholes. There's many, many tricks to it. They do not have an oath of office because there are a lot of them operating under fraud. Now, Thomas Jefferson said this also. It is very powerful. He said, when the government fear the people, it's freedom. But when the people fear the government, it's treason. People, get that fear factor out of your mind and grow backbone and stand up for your rights. Remember, the government act like they always tell us about civil rights. Government give us civil rights. We don't want civil rights. Civil rights is government, is government thing. That's government way of usurping authority over us. Our rights are not civil rights, okay? Civil rights is from government. Our rights are unalienable rights, meaning they come from the Almighty. If you notice in the Constitution, you'll never see the word civil rights, but you'll see the words unalienable rights. They are different. Civil rights is from government, unalienable rights is from the Almighty, okay? Always remember that. And like I said, DCF, CPS, it's about, you know. Still, all of that is under 42 USC at the United States courts, and they do not have jurisdiction over we the people. Now, there are many ways. Like I said, sometimes they came in, they come in people's homes. Sometimes people let them in inside their life. Sometimes it's hard to get them out. Don't let them in from the first place. So There are many things. Another thing, for example, if you notice these kangaroo tribunals that they have, there's so many things about it that's wrong. Okay, due process is violated like from top to bottom. What is due process? The right to be heard, the right to have a fair hearing, etc., and the right of our, the right to defend ourselves in a court, a real court of law. If you notice, the 14th Amendment protects. It's set to the states. You have to protect these people's rights. You have to guarantee them due process, and also the Fifth Amendment. People have a right to be heard and to defend. And one of the things they do in these kangaroo hearings, like I said, and it's based upon the federal funding. The federal government gives each state incentives to enforce the Title 4E, okay, CPS and DCF. So that's why they're doing it. It's for the money. Each child, okay, each child that they kidnap, it depends. Each time they adopt them out, it's a lot of money and so on and so forth. If the child has some type of disability, it's even more. So the states are matched a lot of money, which goes into the state treasury. From the state treasury, the judges, hearing officers, commissioner, even the sheriff, probation, state attorney, all of them get paid from that state treasury. And you know what's sad? All of those I just mentioned, they are constitutional officers who take an oath to uphold and defend the people's rights. Okay, they're all a part of that federal funding of the state treasury. For example, when they kidnap the children, they get a lot of money for each child. So it's not in their best interest to take back that child. Sometimes they use the best interest of the child. It's just a PR campaign because it sounds good, but they don't care anything about the child. How many of you listening to me right now have heard or seen in the news many times children disappear and the DCF within DCF and CPS care, and they don't know where these children are within their care? How many children get hurt or get killed in their care? Okay, it's nonstop. I remember years ago, an anonymous DCF supervisor contacted me, and he said the thing that goes on inside here is appalling. He's angry. He's so angry. He says it's disgusting. He said you have never seen so many molestation within the system. You understand? And they don't care about the children. They do not care about the children. Like I said, it's all about federal funding. These people make a big paycheck out of it, and that's what they do. And like I said, we the people, you have to know your rights. It's not only your right, but the rights of your children. Every family have the right to protect their children. They have the right to rear their children. Now, let me change this by saying, we're not saying that they are not bad children there, that sometimes the children have to be removed from these parents. That does happen, but we're not in those type of people. Most of the children that they move, a lot of them are innocent. The parents are innocent and did nothing wrong. They are just taken away because of some misunderstanding, some spite, some drug, some federal funding. That's it in a nutshell. Like I said, we study these things. We watch what's going on in the system, and we try to inform or educate our fellow citizens that they could stand up for themselves and protect their family, because there's nothing more valuable than your family that the Almighty has given us. And let me tell you, if you notice, these tribunals, they do not have trial by jury. Now, the Constitution for the United States is very, 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 very particular about trial by jury. Why? Because CPS, whether they want to take somebody into a criminal or a civil proceeding, guess what? Both guarantee a trial by jury. If it's a civil matter, the Seventh Amendment states, in suit at common law where the controversy exceeds $20, the right of trial by jury shall be preserved. Okay, that's if some, and most of these cases there's more than $20 involved, because when they sell out or adopt these children, it's more than $20. Then the other one, if it's a criminal proceeding under the Sixth Amendment, they have a right to a trial by jury. But guess what? When they take away these children and they place them in foster parents' home and sometimes terminate the parents' rights, they do not give them any trial by jury. Guess why? Because the hearing officer works for the corporation that get funding from the federal government. Okay, the it's all a big scam. You know, there's a contract with the state, with the county, and the federal government for funding. Okay, the magistrate, the judges, the sheriff department, the probation department, all of them in the county and in the state, they have a contract with the federal government to for funding. So that's why justice is being blinded. Okay, they do not care. So I'm going to close up this now, and like I said, anybody who want our assistance with the information that we research, and there's many tactics in fighting for your children. You know, the Florida Supreme Court. I have researched information and given to friends, like with habeas corpuses can in some cases get back your children. There are many different avenues that people can pursue, but just don't give up. Don't give up. They want people to give up and just go away. That's your children. Don't give up. And like I said, if any one of you need help, just reach us. I think our email is at the bottom. Conciseparalegal. We are paralegal and we are document preparation services. We work for attorneys and we also help fill out research documents for people. So get back with us, okay? Until then, have a blessed one. Shalom Aleichem.
Shalom. Peace be unto thee. It's the place and brothers in the spies. It's the rabbi again.